Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the cold observation window of the medical bay, watching the alien warship drift silently through the void. The massive vessel looked dead, its hull scarred by plasma burns and meteor impacts. No life signs registered on their scanners, yet something had drawn her research team to investigate. "Captain, we're detecting a faint energy signature from the lower decks," reported Lieutenant Chen from the bridge communicator. "Could be emergency life support." Elena's heart raced. In her 15 years of xenobiology research, she had never encountered a living alien species. The galaxy seemed empty of intelligent life, filled only with ruins and dead worlds. This could change everything. "Prepare the boarding party," she ordered, pulling on her environmental suit, full medical kit and translation equipment. The airlock hissed as they crossed into the alien vessel. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows down the corridors, revealing architecture that seemed both organic and mechanical. The walls pulsed with a faint bioluminescent glow, as if the ship itself was barely alive. They found him in what appeared to be a medical chamber, suspended in a crystalline pod filled with glowing fluid. The alien was humanoid but clearly not human, with pale blue skin marked by intricate silver patterns. His breathing was shallow and multiple wounds covered his body. The life support system was failing. "My God," whispered Dr. Reeves, Elena's assistant. "He's dying." Elena's training kicked in. Despite the species difference, she could recognize trauma when she saw it. Burns, lacerations, and what looked like severe internal bleeding. Without hesitation, she began connecting her portable medical equipment to the alien's pod. "Elena, are you insane?" Chen's voice crackled through the comm. "We don't know anything about their biology." "I know enough," she replied, her hands steady as she worked. "He's dying, and I'm not going to let that happen." For the next 6 hours, Elena fought to save a life she barely understood. She cross-referenced their medical databases, made calculated guesses about alien physiology, and used every technique in her arsenal. The alien's vital signs fluctuated wildly, but gradually began to stabilize. When his eyes finally opened, they were the color of deep ocean water, intelligent and aware. He spoke in a melodic language she couldn't understand, but his expression was unmistakably grateful. Elena smiled, tears streaming down her face inside her helmet. "You're safe now," she whispered, knowing he couldn't understand but hoping her tone conveyed her meaning. The alien reached out with a trembling hand and touched the glass of her helmet. For a moment their eyes met, and Elena felt an incredible connection across the vast gulf between species. She had saved him, and in doing so, had made first contact with an intelligent alien race. Over the following days, as they transported him to their medical facility, Elena worked tirelessly to understand his biology and ensure his recovery. The alien, whom she began calling Kale after a word he frequently used when looking at the stars, proved to be remarkably intelligent and quick to learn basic English. "Thank you, Elena," he said one morning, his voice still weak but filled with emotion. "You gave me back my life when you had no reason to trust me." "Every life has value," she replied simply. "No matter where it comes from." Kale's recovery was miraculous. His species, he explained, were called the Zephyrians, and they possessed remarkable regenerative abilities when given proper care. As his strength returned, he shared stories of his people, their advanced civilization, and the terrible war that had nearly destroyed his ship. "My people will want to meet you," he told Elena as he prepared to leave. "You have shown kindness to a stranger, something rare in this galaxy. The Zephyrian Council will remember this." Elena felt a pang of sadness as she watched him board the rescue ship his people had sent. They had spent weeks together, sharing knowledge and building what felt like a genuine friendship. As his ship disappeared into hyperspace, she wondered if she would ever see him again. "He promised to return," she told Dr. Reeves as they watched the stars. "Said his people would want to establish formal contact. And you believe him?" Elena touched the small translucent stone Kale had given her as a parting gift, its surface warm against her palm. "I have to. This could be the beginning of something wonderful for humanity." Months passed and Elena continued her research, but part of her mind was always on the stars, waiting for Kale's promised return. She had no idea that her act of compassion had set in motion events that would test the very foundations of human courage and determination. The rescue of one alien had been simple. What was coming next would challenge everything Elena thought she knew about survival, sacrifice, and the true meaning of heroism in an unforgiving galaxy. 18 months after Kale's departure, the first signs appeared on the deep space monitoring stations. Massive energy signatures moving through hyperspace, heading directly toward Earth. Elena stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the tactical displays with growing excitement. Could it be them? Asked Admiral Morrison, the base commander. Your alien friends? It has to be, Elena replied, clutching Kale's gift stone. The energy patterns match Zephyrian technology. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, and Elena's heart soared. 12 beautiful ships with the same organic design as Kale's original vessel, but these were clearly built for diplomacy rather than war. Gleaming hulls reflected the distant sun like scattered jewels. Incoming transmission, reported Communications Officer Torres. It's in English. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a face Elena didn't recognize. The alien looked similar to Kale, but older, with more pronounced silver markings and eyes that seemed cold despite their ocean blue color. Greetings, humans of Earth. The alien spoke with perfect pronunciation. I am High Counselor Xeris of the Zephyrian Council. We come seeking the one called Elena Vasquez who showed mercy to one of our people. Elena stepped forward, her pulse racing with anticipation. I'm Elena Vasquez. Is Kale with you? I've been hoping to see him again. Xeris's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Kale speaks highly of your intervention. The Council wishes to meet you personally to discuss a matter of great importance. We request that you come aboard our flagship as our honored guest. Admiral Morrison frowned. Dr. Vasquez will need to bring a security detail. That will not be necessary, Xeris replied smoothly. You have our word that she will be treated with the utmost respect and returned safely. Elena felt a flutter of unease but pushed it aside. This was the moment she had dreamed of. First contact developing into formal relations between species. I'll come alone as a gesture of trust. The shuttle bay of the Zephyrian flagship was magnificent, filled with crystalline structures that hummed with energy. Elena was greeted by an honor guard in flowing robes, their faces hidden behind decorative masks. Something felt different from her memories of Kale's warm personality, but she attributed it to cultural formality. Welcome aboard the Astral Dawn, said Xeris as he led her through corridors that seemed to shift and flow like living tissue. The Council eagerly awaits your presence. The Council chamber was vast and imposing, with 12 figures seated in a circle around a central platform. Elena was escorted to the center, feeling suddenly small under their collective gaze. She looked around hopefully for Kale, but saw only strangers. Where is Kale? She asked. I was hoping to see him. He is indisposed, Xeris replied. But his report of your actions was most illuminating. You saved his life despite having no obligation to do so. Of course, Elena said, confused by the formal tone. Any decent person would have done the same. Precisely. Xeris's voice turned cold. This is what makes your species so valuable. Before Elena could ask what he meant, energy fields erupted around her, trapping her in a shimmering cage. She spun around in shock as the Zephyrians rose from their seats, their expressions now openly hostile. What's happening? I came here in peace. And peace you shall have, Xeris said with a cruel smile. The peace of servitude. Your species has demonstrated a remarkable capacity for self-sacrifice and healing. These are qualities the Zephyrian Empire requires. Elena's blood ran cold as the full scope of the betrayal became clear. Kale told you about human compassion, and you're using it against us. Kale told us everything we needed to know. Your medical knowledge, your willingness to help strangers, your emotional attachment to other life forms. These weaknesses will serve our purposes well. The council chamber's walls became transparent, revealing the truth that made Elena's knees buckle. Beyond the flagship, the beautiful diplomatic vessels were transforming, their hulls splitting open to reveal the massive invasion force hidden within. Thousands of warships emerged like parasites from their hosts, weapons charging with deadly light. You're going to invade Earth, Elena whispered. We prefer to think of it as acquiring resources, Xeris corrected. Your people will make excellent medical servants and emotional support units for our warriors. And you, Dr. Vasquez, will personally oversee their training. Elena slammed her fists against the energy barrier. I'll never help you enslave my people. Oh, but you will. Xeris gestured to another screen that flickered to life, showing the Luna base where she had just been standing. Your Admiral Morrison was most cooperative in providing us with Earth's defense frequencies. He had no choice, really, after we demonstrated our weapons on your asteroid mining stations. On the screen, Elena watched in horror as human soldiers were herded into holding areas by Zephyrian guards. The invasion had already begun while she was being deceived in the council chamber. You see, Doctor, your compassion has doomed your entire species. Had you left Kale to die, we would never have known about humanity's potential. But you couldn't help yourself, could you? You had to save a stranger. Elena collapsed to her knees, the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. Her act of mercy had led directly to humanity's downfall. As she knelt in the energy cage watching the Zephyrian fleet move toward Earth, one thought burned through her despair. Where was Kale, the alien she had saved, who had spoken of friendship and gratitude? Had he been part of this plan from the beginning? Or was he somewhere in this fleet as much a prisoner as she was about to become? The answer would have to wait. Earth was falling, and Elena was helpless to stop the catastrophe her kindness had unleashed. 3 years had passed since the fall of Earth, and Elena had become something she never thought possible: a collaborator. In her sterile laboratory aboard the massive prison ship Eternal Servitude, she trained captured humans in advanced medical techniques, teaching them to heal their Zephyrian masters with unprecedented efficiency. Remember, the third heart chamber is the most sensitive. She instructed a group of new medical slaves, her voice hollow and mechanical. Apply pressure here during cardiac procedures. The humans in her class looked at her with a mixture of respect and barely concealed hatred. They knew she was the reason for their enslavement, the human whose compassion had revealed their species to the Zephyrians. Yet she was also their teacher, the only one keeping them alive by making them useful. Elena had learned to bury her emotions deep. Every day she complied was another day the humans under her care stayed alive. Xeris had made the rules clear. As long as she cooperated, her students would be treated well by slave standards. The moment she resisted, they would be fed to the carnivorous creatures in the ship's lower levels. Dr. Vasquez called guard Captain Vex as he entered the laboratory. High Counselor Xeris requests your presence in the detention wing. A new prisoner requires medical evaluation. Elena's stomach tightened. New prisoners usually meant more humans captured from the scattered resistance movements. She gathered her medical kit and followed Vex through the ship's twisting corridors, past cells filled with hundreds of human slaves. The maximum security detention wing was different from the general population areas. These cells held dangerous prisoners, humans who had shown leadership qualities or special knowledge that made them too valuable to waste, but too risky to leave among the others. In here, Vex gestured to a heavily shielded cell at the end of the corridor. Elena approached the observation window and felt her world shift. Inside the cell, chained to the wall with energy restraints, was Kale. But this wasn't the grateful, friendly alien she remembered. His silver markings were dim, his skin pale and scarred. He looked up as she appeared at the window, and his ocean blue eyes filled with desperate recognition. "Elena," he whispered, his voice barely audible through the cell's audio system. "You know this prisoner?" Vex asked, studying Elena's shocked expression. He was the one I rescued," Elena managed to say. "But I thought he was working with Xeris." Vex laughed harshly. "This traitor? He's been here almost as long as you have. Kept trying to warn your people about the invasion. Cost us 3 colony raids before we finally captured him." Elena's mind reeled as the truth crashed down on her. Kale hadn't betrayed humanity. He had tried to save them, while she had been wallowing in guilt for 3 years, believing her compassion had doomed her species. Kale had been fighting to protect them. "I need to examine him," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "He looks injured." 5 minutes, Vex warned. "And remember, we'll be watching." The cell door hissed open and Elena stepped inside, her medical scanner trembling in her hands. Kale watched her approach, his expression unreadable. "I thought you were dead," she whispered as she pretended to check his vital signs. "I thought you had betrayed us." "Never," Kyle replied quietly. "When I returned to my people and told them about your kindness, most of the council wanted to make peaceful contact. But Xeris had other ideas. He convinced them that humans could be more valuable as servants than allies." Elena felt tears threatening to escape. "Then why didn't you warn us? Send a message?" "I tried. As soon as I realized what Xeris was planning, I stole a ship and raced back to Earth. But I was too late." By the time I arrived, the invasion fleet was already in your solar system. I spent 2 years trying to disrupt their operations from the inside. The scanner in Elena's hands beeped softly, revealing the full extent of Kale's injuries. He had been systematically tortured, his regenerative abilities pushed to their limits over and over again. The Zephyrians had been using him as a test subject for their most brutal techniques. "I'm so sorry," Elena breathed. "If I had never saved you, then my people would have found another way to discover yours," Kale interrupted. "Or some other species would have enslaved humanity eventually. You did what was right, Elena. You saved a life. What happened after wasn't your fault." "Time's up," Vex called from the doorway. As Elena prepared to leave, Kale grabbed her wrist with his restrained hand. His touch was weak but urgent. "The resistance isn't broken," he whispered so quietly that only she could hear. "There are still free humans out there and they're planning something big. But they need inside information. They need someone close to the council." Elena's eyes widened as she understood what he was asking. For 3 years, she had been the perfect prisoner, complying with every demand to keep her students safe. But now she faced a choice that could change everything. "I can't," she whispered back. "If I'm caught, they'll kill everyone I've been protecting. And if you do nothing, they'll all die slaves anyway," Kale replied. "Your people need their doctor back, Elena. The real one, not this broken shell Xeris has created." As Elena was escorted back to her laboratory, Kale's words echoed in her mind. The resistance was still fighting. Humanity wasn't completely beaten. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, free humans were planning to strike back against their oppressors. The question was, did she have the courage to risk everything she had spent 3 years protecting for the chance to help them win? That night, as she lay in her small quarters, Elena touched the stone Kale had given her so long ago. It still warmed at her touch, as if responding to her emotions. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel something other than despair. Hope was dangerous in a place like this. But as Elena began to plan, she realized that hope might be the only weapon she had left. The opportunity came 3 weeks later when High Counselor Xeris summoned Elena to his private chambers. The summons itself was unusual. Normally, their interactions took place in the sterile conference rooms where she reported on her students' progress. This felt different, more personal. Xeris's quarters were a testament to Zephyrian excess, filled with art and treasures stolen from a dozen conquered worlds. Human artifacts sat alongside Altarian crystals and Mokari sculptures, all trophies of his expanding empire. Dr. Vasquez." Xeris greeted her with his typical cold smile. "Please sit. I have a proposition for you." Elena took the offered seat, her medical bag clutched tightly in her lap. Inside, hidden among the standard supplies, were the tools she had been carefully gathering: a communicator stolen from a careless guard, emergency stimulants that could overcome Zephyrian paralysis toxins, and a small explosive device she had constructed from medical equipment. "You've been an exemplary prisoner," Xeris continued, pouring himself a glass of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. "Your compliance has saved countless human lives, and your training programs have increased our medical efficiency by 300%. "I do what I must to protect my people," Elena replied carefully. "Indeed. Which is why I'm prepared to offer you something unprecedented." Xeris leaned forward, his ocean blue eyes gleaming with ambition. "Freedom." Elena's heart skipped a beat, but she kept her expression neutral. "What kind of freedom?" "Complete autonomy over a human colony world. You would govern your own people, establish your own medical facilities, live as you choose. All I ask in return is that you continue to provide medical services to the Empire when called upon." It was a tempting offer, and Elena could see the calculation behind it. Give her a position of authority, and she would become invested in maintaining the status quo. Let her save some humans, and she would stop fighting to save them all. What about the humans already enslaved? The most valuable would join you on your colony world. The others, Xeris shrugged. They would continue to serve where they are most needed. Elena pretended to consider the offer while her mind raced. This was exactly what Kale had described. The chance to get close enough to the council to make a difference. But she needed more information before she could act. "I would need guarantees," she said. "Written agreements about the treatment of my people." "Of course. In fact, I was hoping you might review our current policies and suggest improvements." Xeris stood and walked to his desk, retrieving a data pad. "These are the locations of all human holding facilities, Guard rotations and transport schedules. I trust your discretion. Elena nearly gasped as she saw the information scrolling across the screen. Troop movements, ship locations, even the codes for accessing secured areas. This was everything the Resistance would need to plan a coordinated strike. This is quite comprehensive, she managed to say. I want you to understand the full scope of our operations. Make your decision with complete knowledge. Zaris returned to his seat, watching her reaction carefully. Of course, this information is highly classified. Sharing it with anyone would be inadvisable. The threat was clear, but Elena had already made her choice. She memorized as much as she could while pretending to study the policies, noting the locations of the largest prison ships and the schedules for transferring high-value prisoners. I need time to consider your offer, she said finally. Naturally, take all the time you need. Zaris's smile turned predatory. But remember, Dr. Vasquez, opportunities like this don't come often. I would hate for you to miss your chance at redemption. That night, Elena put her plan into action. Using the stolen communicator, she sent a coded message to the frequency Kale had whispered to her during another medical visit. The message was disguised as a medical report, but embedded within it were the guard rotations and transport schedules she had memorized. The response came 2 days later, hidden in a routine supply delivery. A single word scratched on the bottom of a medicine container. Tomorrow. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Tomorrow the Resistance would strike. But she still had one crucial task remaining. She needed to find a way to free Kale and get both of them off the ship before the attack began. The next morning, Elena requested permission to conduct a comprehensive medical survey of the maximum security wing, claiming she needed to document the health status of high-value prisoners for her report to Zaris. The guards, used to her compliant behavior, granted the request without suspicion. As she moved through the detention wing with her expanded medical kit, Elena felt the weight of the explosive device hidden among her supplies. She had one chance to get this right. If she failed, everyone she had protected for 3 years would pay the price. Kyle was waiting for her, his eyes alert despite his weakened condition. Is it today? He asked quietly. In 6 hours, Elena whispered as she pretended to scan his injuries. Can you move? If I have to. Kyle's voice was determined despite his obvious pain. What about your students? They're being moved to a different section of the ship today for advanced training, Elena replied, hoping it was true. They should be away from the main fighting. Elena worked quickly, using a stimulant injection to boost Kale's regenerative abilities, while attaching the explosive device to the cell's energy restraint system. The device was small but powerful enough to disrupt the containment field for several minutes. When the explosion happens, you'll have maybe 5 minutes before the backup systems engage, she explained. Can you make it to the shuttle bay in that time? We can make it, Kyle corrected. You're not staying behind. Elena shook her head. Someone needs to make sure the other prisoners get out safely. Besides, Zaris is expecting me to give him my answer about his offer today. If I disappear, he'll know something is wrong. Before Kale could argue, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Through the detention wing's small windows, Elena could see explosions blooming like flowers against the dark hull of neighboring vessels. The Resistance attack had begun. Change of plans, she said grimly, activating the explosive device. We're leaving together right now. The containment field flickered and died as the device overloaded the system. Kale stumbled to his feet, his movement still weak but determined. Together they ran toward an uncertain freedom, while the battle for humanity's survival raged around them. Behind them, Elena could hear Zaris's voice over the ship's communication system, cold and furious as he realized his perfect prisoner had finally remembered how to fight back. The shuttle bay erupted in chaos as Elena and Kale burst through the access doors. Zephyrian guards scrambled to reach defensive positions while human slaves took advantage of the confusion to break free from their workstations. Emergency lights bathed everything in hellish red as explosions rocked the massive prison ship. There, Kale pointed to a small transport shuttle near the bay's exit port. If we can reach it, I can get us out of here. Elena looked around desperately for her students, the humans she had protected for 3 years. She spotted a group of them huddled behind a stack of supply containers, terror written across their faces as energy bolts flew overhead. I can't leave them, she told Kale, pulling her medical bag higher on her shoulder. Elena, We have minutes before this entire section is sealed off. Then help me get them to safety." Together, they fought their way across the shuttle bay, dodging weapons fire and falling debris. Kyle moved with surprising grace despite his injuries, his knowledge of Zephyrian technology allowing him to disable several guard stations as they passed. "Dr. Vasquez," called Marcus Webb, one of her senior students. "What's happening?" "The guards just started shooting." "The resistance is here," Elena replied, checking the group for injuries. "We're getting off this ship, but we need to move fast." As they ran toward the shuttle, Guard Captain Vex appeared at the bay's main entrance with a squad of heavily armed soldiers. His face twisted with rage when he saw Elena and Kale together. "Stop right there, traitors. You're not going anywhere." Energy bolts scorched the deck around them as Elena's group dove for cover behind the shuttle. Kale worked frantically at the ship's access panel, while Elena tried to keep everyone calm and protected. "I can't get the engine started," Kale called over the sound of weapons fire. "They've locked down all small craft from the command center." Elena felt desperation rising in her chest. They were so close to freedom, but trapped by Zephyrian technology. Then she remembered something from her first weeks of captivity, a conversation with a Zephyrian engineer about ship systems. "The medical bay override," she exclaimed. "Ships this size have emergency medical evacuation protocols. If there's a biohazard alert in the medical sections, all shuttles automatically unlock for evacuation. How do we trigger it?" asked Kale. Elena smiled grimly as she pulled the remaining explosive devices from her medical bag. "We make our own biohazard." While Kale and the students provided covering fire using captured Zephyrian weapons, Elena sprinted back toward the ship's interior. She knew exactly where to place the explosives for maximum effect. The main medical storage facility 3 decks up, where thousands of dangerous chemicals and biological samples were kept. The corridors shook with each impact as the resistance fleet pressed their attack against the prison ship. Elena could hear the groaning of stressed metal and the hiss of atmosphere venting from damaged sections. Whatever the human resistance had planned, it was working. She reached the medical storage facility to find it abandoned, the Zephyrian medical staff having fled to their emergency stations. Elena quickly placed her remaining explosives among the most volatile chemical containers, setting the timer for 2 minutes. More than enough time to get back to the shuttle bay, she hoped. The explosion, when it came, was spectacular. The entire deck shuddered as chemical fires spread through the medical section, sending toxic smoke billowing through the ventilation systems. Alarms screamed warnings about biological contamination as the ship's automated systems detected the spreading hazard. Elena reached the shuttle bay just as every small craft in the facility came to life, their engines powering up automatically as the evacuation protocol engaged. "You magnificent, crazy human," Kale laughed as he helped her into the shuttle. That actually worked. As their shuttle lifted off and headed for the bay's exit, Elena looked back to see Guard Captain Vex shaking his fist at them through the hangar's observation window. His furious expression was the last thing she saw of the eternal servitude as they escaped into space. The view outside was breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure. Dozens of human ships, clearly built from scavenged parts and salvaged technology, swarmed around the massive Zephyrian vessels like angry wasps attacking giants. Despite being vastly outgunned, the human fleet was holding its own through sheer determination and clever tactics. "Where did they get all these ships?" Elena asked in amazement. "Your people have been busy," Kyle replied as he piloted them toward a battered human cruiser that was signaling for survivors. 3 years of hit-and-run raids, stealing technology and freeing prisoners. They've built an entire fleet from nothing. As they docked with the resistance ship, Elena felt overwhelmed by the sight of free humans working together with calm efficiency. These weren't broken slaves anymore, but determined fighters who had refused to accept defeat. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a weathered human captain, greeted them as they disembarked. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen, formerly of the Luna-based Defense Force. We've been trying to reach you for 2 years. You know about me? Everyone knows about you. The doctor who saved an alien and accidentally started a war, then spent 3 years keeping captured humans alive while gathering intelligence." Chen smiled warmly. "You're practically a legend." Elena felt tears threatening to fall. For so long she had carried the guilt of humanity's enslavement. To learn that her people saw her as a hero rather than a traitor was almost too much to process. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now?" Chen looked out at the battle raging around them, where human courage was slowly but surely winning out against superior technology. Now we take our planet back, and we're going to need every doctor, every teacher, and every person who refuses to give up. Elena squared her shoulders and picked up her medical bag. There were wounded humans to tend to and a species to save. The real fight was just beginning. But for the first time in 3 years, she felt ready to be the person she was meant to be. Behind them, Kale watched with admiration as Elena immediately began organizing medical care for the rescued prisoners. He had been right about humans all along. Their capacity for compassion wasn't a weakness to be exploited, but a strength that could overcome any tyranny. 6 months after the Great Escape, as history would later call it, Elena stood on the bridge of the human flagship Defiance, watching the final assault on the Zephyrian homeworld. The sight before her would have been impossible to imagine just a year ago. Hundreds of human vessels, no longer cobbled together from scraps but sleek new designs born from captured technology and human ingenuity. Entering final approach vector, announced Admiral Morrison, the same man who had commanded Luna Base before the invasion. His hair had gone completely gray during the occupation, but his eyes burned with renewed purpose. All ships report ready. Elena adjusted her new uniform, the insignia of Chief Medical Officer gleaming on her collar. The Resistance had offered her a military rank, recognizing that her 3 years of intelligence gathering had been as valuable as any weapon in their arsenal. Zephyrian Defense Fleet is moving to intercept, reported Tactical Officer Reynolds. 80 ships, all heavy cruiser class or larger. 80 ships, mused Captain Chen, who now served as Morrison's second-in-command. 3 years ago, that would have been hopeless odds. Today, Elena smiled grimly. Today they don't know what humans are really capable of. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Zephyrians, accustomed to facing opponents who fought according to established military doctrine, found themselves completely unprepared for human tactics. Where other species would form orderly battle lines, humans swarmed and struck from unexpected angles. Where others would retreat when faced with superior firepower, humans simply adapted and pressed forward. Medical teams to stations, Elena announced over the ship's communication system. All personnel prepare for casualties, but the casualties were lighter than expected. 3 years of studying Zephyrian technology while enslaved had given humanity an unprecedented understanding of their enemies' capabilities and weaknesses. Human ships danced through Zephyrian formations, exploiting blind spots that the aliens didn't even know they had. Their flagship is signaling for parley, Reynolds reported as the Zephyrian formation began to collapse. On the main screen, High Counselor Xeris appeared, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. The cold confidence that had defined him was gone, replaced by barely controlled desperation. Admiral Morrison, Xeris spoke through gritted teeth. I request immediate cessation of hostilities to discuss terms. The time for discussion was 3 years ago, Morrison replied coldly. Before you enslaved my people and destroyed our colonies. You don't understand the larger situation, Xeris protested. The Zephyrian Empire maintains order in this sector. Without us, chaos will reign. Pirates, raiders, worse things will prey upon the weak. Elena stepped forward, moving into the communication pickups range. Then it's fortunate that humans will be here to maintain order instead. Xeris's eyes widened with recognition and rage. You! This is all your fault, you meddling human. If you had simply let Kale die. If I had let Kale die, Elena interrupted, humanity might have remained ignorant and vulnerable forever. You taught us what we needed to know about survival in a hostile galaxy. For that lesson, we thank you. The communication channel closed as Xeris realized he was beaten. Within hours, the Zephyrian homeworld surrendered, their once mighty empire crumbling as word spread that humans, the species they had enslaved as medical servants, had somehow turned the tables completely. In the days that followed, Elena found herself working alongside Kale to establish new diplomatic protocols. His knowledge of galactic politics combined with her understanding of human nature proved invaluable in navigating the complex aftermath of their victory. The other species are frightened, Kale reported as they reviewed intelligence reports from across the sector. They've watched humans go from unknown newcomers to galactic dominance in less than 4 years. Many are concerned about what you'll do next. Elena considered this as she looked out at the stars from her new office aboard the liberated space station that would serve as humanity's sector headquarters. What do you think we should do? What you've always done, Kale replied with a smile. Show compassion to those who need it, and strength to those who would exploit weakness. The new human republic that emerged from the ashes of Zephyrian tyranny was unlike any government the galaxy had seen. Instead of ruling through fear and oppression, humanity offered partnership and protection to any species willing to coexist peacefully. Their advanced medical knowledge, gained through Elena's forced training programs, became a tool of diplomacy rather than oppression. Former Zephyrian slave worlds were given the choice of independence or joining the Republic as equal partners. Most chose partnership, having seen how humans treated their own people compared to how the Zephyrians had treated everyone. It's ironic. Elena mused one evening as she and Kyle watched the sunset through the space station's observation deck. Xeris was right about one thing. The galaxy does need someone to maintain order and protect the weak. He just never imagined it would be us. Your people have a saying, don't they, about the best being those who don't seek power? Elena nodded. Those who are reluctant to lead are often the ones best suited for it. As the months passed, Elena established medical academies throughout human space, training not just humans but representatives from dozens of allied species. The same compassion that had led her to save a dying alien now became the foundation of a new galactic order, based on cooperation rather than conquest. The stone Kyle had given her so long ago still sat on her desk, a reminder of the simple act of kindness that had changed everything. Sometimes she wondered what would have happened if she had walked away from that dying alien ship, if she had chosen safety over compassion. But then she would look out at the stars, knowing that countless beings throughout the sector now lived free from oppression because one human doctor had refused to let a stranger die, and she knew she wouldn't change a thing. The galaxy had learned that humans were dangerous, but not in the way they expected. They were dangerous because they refused to accept that suffering was inevitable, that the strong must always prey upon the weak, that compassion was weakness rather than the greatest strength of all. Elena Vasquez had saved one life and doomed humanity to slavery. But in doing so, she had also given her species the greatest gift imaginable, the knowledge that even in the darkest circumstances, even when facing impossible odds, the choice to show mercy and fight for what was right could change everything. The stars held countless worlds now, and on each one, beings looked up at the night sky knowing that somewhere among those distant lights, humans stood watch, ready to help those in need and stop those who would cause harm. It was a responsibility Elena's people had never asked for, but one they embraced with the same spirit that had led a doctor to risk everything for a dying stranger. In the end, that was what made humans truly dangerous, their refusal to give up on hope.